On today's episode of America Unfiltered with James Pascalides, we'll talk about topics like Elon Musk getting nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. We'll talk about the deportation numbers from each one of the last few presidential terms. We'll go over highlights from the fake news media over the last couple days and RFK's confirmation hearing. All that and much more coming up now on episode 17 of America Unfiltered with James Pascalides, starting now.
The moment is here. This is our moment.
America, we are back, baby. Welcome to another episode of America Unfiltered with James Pascalides. This is episode 17. I'm going to jump right into my topics today. I want to talk about Elon Musk getting nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for restoring free speech in America. So free speech was never completely lost, but on social media it almost was. It got dangerously close as Facebook was censoring users, or Meta was censoring users, and various social media platforms were having government pressure to censor our free speech on those platforms, labeling those things as misinformation and taking them out of the algorithm. So making it that the algorithm of Meta, of Twitter at the time, wasn't promoting these topics or wasn't showing your posts. Elon Musk fixed that when he, for over $40 billion, purchased X, restoring free speech in America. Elon Musk did this not as a financial investment. He knew, or he said to the people, if I lose money on this, I do not care. I'm doing this to restore free speech in the country. I'm doing this to expose the government's corruption. And he did that with the Twitter or X files. So what the Twitter files were is he exposed documents from the government to employees, basically saying specific posts needed to be censored, specific topics needed to be censored. The biggest one being the Hunter Biden laptop story. I personally don't think that the Hunter Biden laptop story would have affected the election in an insane amount. I do think it might have had some pull in some of the swing states, but for the majority of people, I think most people knew 4 years before this election who they were voting for. Obviously, people didn't know Kamala was going to jump in, although a lot of people could have assumed. But I think for the most part, most people knew if they were voting Democrat or Republican. I don't think it came down to the wire for too many Americans. And if it did, I don't know if that would have played that big of a factor, but I do think that it is imperative that the truth be told to the American people, specifically surrounding people in politics. So, like I said, while I don't think it would have impacted the election all that much if that information came out earlier versus later, but I do think that regardless of that it should still be publicly available knowledge to the people, the same way I think that the vast majority of the classified things in our government from our history should be publicly available as well. I think the more transparency the government gives with the American people, the more trust they put in the American people, and the more trust the American people will put back into the government. We've talked about this before, but trust in the government is at an all-time low, and it's continuously getting lower. Donald Trump is helping to restore it a little bit. He is not only doing exactly what he said he would do for the American people, but he is continuously just trying to make it cheaper, more affordable, a better living situation, safer for Americans, and he's trying to make America a dominant superpower in the world again. We never really lost being a dominant superpower, but we definitely lost our strength a lot. I think while Joe Biden was sitting in office, it was pretty clear that we were a weaker country. We didn't have a strong leader behind the wheel. I respect Joe Biden. He was a president of the United States, and it's a very honorable position. But I think Joe Biden and his family knew that he wasn't fit to be running the office, and that I think most Americans know it was most likely Obama or some senior White House officials who were running the White House and running the country over the last 4 years. We know it wasn't Kamala for sure. That would have been way worse than it was, as bad as it got. So I'm really glad that, to get back to where we were, I'm really glad Elon Musk is getting nominated for this award. I think Elon Musk is a visionary. I think he's one of the smartest people of our generation. Our Earth should be very grateful that Elon Musk is a citizen of it. I'm very, very thankful for Elon Musk, not only for restoring free speech, but for everything he has planned for the future with the Department of Government Efficiency and bringing humans to Mars. Elon Musk talks about making life multiplanetary, and how if we don't make life multiplanetary, eventually humans will become extinct. So I really love the idea that Elon Musk is not only trying to save free speech for us, but he's also trying to save us. He's trying to say that, yeah, we'll make it a few more generations, but birth rates are declining. And inevitably, there will be some sort of catastrophic event, like something that took out the dinosaurs or whatever that event may be, that would erase humans from Earth. But if humans are multiplanetary and say something does happen to Earth, if we do have a habitable environment on Mars, Elon Musk will have succeeded. He will have continued on the human race, which is that's the greatest accomplishment any human could do, is saving the human race. So, like I said, I'm a huge fan of Elon Musk. I love almost everything he's doing. I think a lot more people should follow in his footsteps, and I'm extremely proud that he's getting the nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize. I really think not only is it's past due. Elon Musk deserves this, and the Biden administration nonstop continuously tried to investigate and hurt Elon Musk because he was supporting Trump. But he was supporting Trump even though he's a Democrat, because he's done with the liberal nonsense. He's done with all the wokeness. He's done with DEI. He's done with the spending. He's done with illegal immigration. So, again, I love Elon Musk. I'm very glad of what he's doing. And I want to get into our next topic here with you guys. I want to talk about RFK a little bit. He had his confirmation hearing. We'll talk about the confirmation hearing more a little later, and I'll show you guys some videos. But I want to talk about how RFK, during the confirmation hearing, said he's committed to finding the 300,000 missing children who've been human trafficked under the Biden administration. So one of the worst parts of the fact that the Biden administration allowed in all these illegal immigrants, besides the rampant crime in the country and things like that, is the fact that hundreds of thousands, if not millions of kids were being trafficked across the border consistently. And not only, obviously this is a problem, but beyond that, it was being allowed to happen. So there are multiple interviews of Border Patrol agents, law enforcement officers, people in the government, whistleblowers who have consistently said, we know these kids are being trafficked and we almost can just spot them out. We know that that kid's not with their parents, but we're not allowed to do anything about it. That's despicable to me that the Biden-Harris administration allowed kids to be trafficked, raped, murdered. It's the fact that that happens to anyone is awful, but children of all people, not only are those people disgustingly sick and should be sentenced to death, all the people involved in trafficking children, but the government should hold some responsibility for that. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris should hold some responsibility to the 300,000 missing children who have been trafficked in this country. It is an abomination to what America is to allow that to happen. I am so glad that RFK is on top of this. Donald Trump has already been on top of this as well with Elon Musk. They've already said this is an issue they're going to tackle. But RFK Jr. in his confirmation hearing said it will be one of his missions to make sure that every one of those children is reunited with their family and is brought out of sex trafficking. I can't talk enough about how bad sex trafficking is. I know that's an extremely obvious statement. If you guys have not seen The Sound of Freedom, I urge you guys all to watch it. It was a movie done by Angel Studios. It actually had a lot of government backlash when they were making it with Joe Biden. There was a lot of resistance from theaters and from production companies and from outside sources, basically trying to not have the movie made, not have it be seen. What the movie does is it shows a little bit of the dark side. Not that there's a light side to it, but it shows the darker sides of human trafficking, how they operate, how it's not always just someone, throwing a bag over your head and throwing you in a car, how it's usually someone who comes to you as your friend. Maybe they send an attractive woman to lure children or lure other men in, whatever it is. But it's a movie, and it shows the story of a boy and an ICE officer trying to get him back with his dad, back with his sister. The boy and the sister were both human trafficked. It's a terribly sad story. I can't say that enough. You will cry watching it. It's a very hard story to watch. But it just goes to show that it's such a problem in our world, and the fact that RFK is willing to tackle this issue immediately, it really warms my heart, especially after the Biden-Harris administration allowed this to happen on their hands. Not only do they have blood on their hands, but they should be held responsible for it as well. I can't disagree more with how poorly they handled the border, specifically knowing that there were children being trafficked, especially when whistleblowers were continuously pointing it out, not only to the Biden-Harris administration, but to the media, to other government officials. And I mean, you see how much the media destroys Trump. How much has the media talked about 300,000 missing sex slave children in this country? Not a lot. It's disgusting, it's despicable, it's atrocious that our media gets away with this, that our government got away with this. It upsets me. It should upset you as well. I want to move on to our next topic. I want to talk about something that's happening here in my home state of Florida. So, Republicans in Florida put up a bill basically saying that DeSantis's actions in Florida would hurt the federal government in their deportation attempts. So they basically proposed a bill saying that they're going to leave the deportations to the federal government, that state, local officials will not get involved. DeSantis, as I talked about in a previous episode, he put forth a bill, an executive action that would allow local law enforcement officials in Florida to detain and deport illegal immigrants in this country for theft-related crimes. So I really do support that. I think the Republicans going against Ron DeSantis in Florida are bought and paid for, and there's examples of that online as well. You could look up exactly where their funding comes from, and a lot of their funding do come from industries that would benefit from illegal immigration. Wilton Simpson is also a big example of this as well, the head of the Department of Agriculture in Florida. He specifically said that the agriculture industry will be impacted very heavily by the deportation of illegals in a negative way, and he is being named the head of deportations in Florida, or whatever the official title is. So I don't agree with his position. I think it should be someone more like DeSantis, or DeSantis should appoint someone better. Even though Simpson's a Republican, I almost think Nikki Fried was a better Department of Agriculture head in Florida. I think she was a lot less corrupt, a lot more for the people. And, she was making a lot of laws that benefited Florida from a taxes perspective. I know she opened up the CBD industry in Florida as well, which is a blooming industry in the state, one of the biggest. But I really am glad that DeSantis is vetoing this immigration bill that the Florida Republicans put up against his bill. I think DeSantis has a great idea and a great vision for this country and for this state, the same way Donald Trump does as well. So I'm really glad that DeSantis and Trump are on the same page. I think that works out a lot better for the country and for the people. I want to talk about our next topic, and I'm actually going to play this video for you guys, and then we'll talk about it, but it's about Donald Trump talking about Guantanamo Bay and how he's bringing it back.
Today, I'm also signing an executive order to instruct the Departments of Defense and Homeland Security to begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay. Most people don't even know about it. We have 30,000 beds in Guantanamo to detain the worst criminal illegal aliens threatening the American people. Some of them are so bad we don't even trust the countries to hold them because we don't want them coming back, so we're going to send them out to Guantanamo.
I don't know about you guys, but the idea of that makes me very excited. It is a very patriotic thing for Trump to have done. To be honest, I didn't even know Guantanamo Bay was still in action. I'm glad that it is. I'm glad that we're going to be able to put some of the worst illegal immigrants in our country there. I think that it's a very effective prison, and not only that, the immigrants that Trump talks about, the ones who came in this country, are doing some of the worst crimes, and we don't even trust their countries to allow them to stay there when we deport them out of this country. I'm glad we're putting them in Guantanamo Bay. A big problem in this country with our immigration and deportations, and Trump is addressing it with this, is that they try and come back. So under the Trump administration, that's a lot harder. We do have military at the border preventing that. But when you're dropping them off in, countries and where you're taking a plane and stuff like that, if they're able to get on a plane back here, if their, name somehow doesn't get red flagged when they try and buy their ticket, whatever it is, that's a huge problem. So I am very glad that Donald Trump is taking the necessary step to remove not only illegal immigrants from this country, deporting them back to their home countries, whether they were criminals, doing acts of crime in the United States, or their crime was just breaking into the United States. Doesn't matter to me. It's still a crime. I'm very glad he's deporting them, and I'm glad he's taking the worst of those people and putting them in Guantanamo Bay. So the terrorists, the rapists, the murderers, they're all going to Guantanamo Bay, to that 30,000 bed facility. I hope and pray that Donald Trump continuously keeps doing this as well as he finds more of these terrible illegal immigrants. I hope he keeps moving them into Guantanamo Bay so we can keep the worst people there. And I'm very glad, like I said, that Donald Trump is continuing his word with the deportations. ICE, day in and day out, are deporting illegal immigrants left and right. There have been thousands of deportations already in just a little over a week of Donald Trump's presidency, 10 days of his presidency. So not only is Donald Trump one of the most effective presidents, he is one of the most truthful as well. I talk about time and time again how politicians, they love to just tell you what you want to hear, get elected, and then they don't like to do anything for their 4-year term. They'll do a couple things, sign a few executive orders, do a couple media press conferences, a couple smiles, and that's it. What Donald Trump has done, signing over 300 executive actions in these first 10 days, deporting thousands of illegal immigrants, firing a huge portion of our government who either A, doesn't work from the office, B, was a DEI employee, or 3, was just not necessary at all and wasting taxpayer dollars. Donald Trump is doing everything he promised to do, and it's because he's not a politician. He's a businessman and a smart one. Talked about this before, but it's about time our country has a businessman behind the wheel running the biggest business in the world. We don't need a politician who's just going to dance around questions and try and make people happy and do everything they can to try and get reelected. We need someone who's going to get in there, fire the bad apples, promote the good ones, pay people more, and make America great again. And that's what Donald Trump is doing. Donald Trump is doing everything he can to make this country as great as it can be. And people love to hate on Donald Trump for deportation, saying he's racist, various kinds of things. The media loves to spin this. But I want to take you guys through some of the deportation numbers in this country over previous terms. We'll start from Bill Clinton. So Bill Clinton should be called the deporter-in-chief. That is actually the nickname they gave Obama. I think it should go to Bill Clinton. And to be honest, I aspire for Donald Trump to achieve Bill Clinton's numbers of deportations. So during Bill Clinton's administration, he deported over 12 million illegal immigrants. 12 million. Barack Obama, it was about 5 million. They gave Obama the name deporter-in-chief. But Donald Trump, the racist who hates Mexicans, hates Spanish people, wants only white people in this country, allegedly, according to the media, 1.5 million. So compared to the 12 million that Bill Clinton has done, who Democrats love, and Barack Obama, who they can't get enough of, but apparently those 1.5 million from Trump, whoa, stop there. Like, what's the logic with Democrats? Where is their logic? There almost is none. And it's not even that Democrats don't have logic, the individual citizens. It's that the Democratic media skews these numbers, skews the truth, and lies to you, lies to the American people, specifically MSNBC, CNN, these Democratic news networks. Fox does it too. I think all the legacy media skews and lies to the American people. But I truly think the liberal media has it the worst, because over the last, I don't know, when has it been since Trump's been in the public space for politics? Since 2015 or so, 10 years? Over the last 10 years, Democrats have continuously ridiculed and ripped apart Donald Trump for his racist policies and for his bigotedness, or whatever they want to call it. But Democrats have been doing this forever. And I'm going to play this video for you guys as well of Obama saying what him going to deport illegals and how it's just a crime to enter this country. But I don't understand how the liberal media can make it seem like Donald Trump is this terrible person for deporting 1.5 million illegal immigrants in this country, while Bill Clinton and Obama combined almost had 20 million. I really don't understand it. I think it makes no sense. But I'm going to pop that video up for you guys really quick.
If you're a criminal, you'll be deported. If you plan to enter the U.S. illegally, your chances of getting caught and sent back just went up. The actions I'm taking are not only lawful, they're the kinds of actions taken by every single Republican president and every single Democratic president for the past half century. And to those members of Congress who question my authority to make our immigration system work better, or question the wisdom of me acting where Congress has failed, I have one answer. Pass a bill.
I love that quote by Obama. I love his quote of saying every single Republican president and every single Democrat president have taken these actions. You want to know why I love that quote? Because he's right. Every president has taken those actions, except for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, as the border czar, let in over 10 million illegals into this country, many which are murderers, rapists, and terrible, terrible people. Obama, as you could see in this clip, he took a firm stance on immigration. And again, like I said, they called him the deporter-in-chief. I aspire for Donald Trump to achieve the numbers that Bill Clinton and Barack Obama achieved in their, 10 years presidents. I really think that, I don't know, I mean, if Donald Trump could hit 12 million deportations, I will be very, very excited. You'll see us throw a party on the show for you guys. I really think that the more we can deport illegal immigrants from this country, the stronger it makes America. The more patriotism it gives to American citizens, the more special it makes America feel. If you're just letting everybody into your country, you're going to turn your country into a third world country inevitably by allowing all the worst people who make their countries terrible into yours. So, like a home, I think you should protect your country. If there are bad apples in your home, you would remove them. If people are assaulting you, if they were trying to rape or murder you in your home, you would kick them out. So why are you allowing them in your country? Why did Joe Biden, why did Kamala Harris allow this? It's one of the biggest unanswered questions. It had to be either financially or politically motivated by them. Obviously, it was politically motivated, but it had to be financially motivated or something else, because very little about that makes sense. Time and time again, Republican or Democrat, presidents have deported illegal immigrants, and they have stood a firm stance on that, as you've seen by the numbers I've read you from previous Republican and Democrat presidents. So for them to completely just drop the ball and say, you know what, just come in. How about this? We're actually going to make you guys an app that allows you to come into our country illegally. I'm so glad Trump got rid of that app. Charlie Kirk did a great take on that app as well, where he actually downloads it, shows the American people that there was an app that allowed illegal immigrants to have a loophole to try and legally get in this country. A loophole that the Biden and Harris administration created for them specifically. Absolutely despicable, terrible. I can't disagree more with the Biden-Harris administration and the vast majority of policies that their corrupt government put in there. It's very, very terrible for the American people. I want to talk about our next topic, and this one's a sad one. I'm going to play a couple of videos for you guys. I'm going to give you a heads up before the first one. It's a little harder to watch. We're going to talk about the plane crash that happened in Washington, D.C. I'm going to play the video for you guys of the crash, and then we'll play a little news segment that happened after as well. I want to take a second and just give thoughts and prayers to the families who tragically lost their family members in this incident. This is something that is very hard for us as Americans to watch, to see, to know happened. It's accidents like this they're really hard, and I just want to take a second. Like I said, I want to pray for all the families and hope that they're okay in the future. And there was 67 people who tragically lost their life in this incident. There were 0 survivors. There were 64 people on the plane that was landing, and there was 3 people on the U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter. So this was a very tragic loss for America. It's a very, very sad day in America because of this. And I want to play the news clip for you guys as well, where they talk about the air traffic control trying to communicate with the helicopter briefly before the crash.
Because we just got this from the Associated Press, and it says, quoting here, in audio from the air traffic control tower around the time of the crash, a controller is heard asking the helicopter, quoting here, Pat 25, do you have the CRJ in sight? In reference, of course, to the passenger aircraft. Tower, did you see that? Another pilot is heard calling seconds after the apparent collision. The tower immediately began diverting other aircraft from Reagan. So it appears there was some concern going in as to whether the Black Hawk helicopter had seen or could see this plane that was clearly on final approach. Kyle.
That is correct, Trace. Good evening.
There hasn't been a ton of information that's came out about the air traffic controller, who they are, how long they've been working there, their qualified credentials and things like that. But Donald Trump has taken, since this crash, an extremely hard stance. He's already taken a hard stance against DEI, but Donald Trump held a press conference yesterday and another one today as well, where he said that he is going to make sure that DEI is completely removed from our airspace, from our control rooms to our aircrafts, from pilots to co-pilots to air traffic controllers, everything in between and surrounding it. I completely support this. I don't know if the air traffic controller was DEI or any of the pilots. Obviously, this wasn't the pilot's fault of that plane. The helicopter, from what it appears and what's being reported, is that the helicopter did not see the plane, didn't have a visual on it, and went right into the side of it as it was about to make its landing. It's a very tragic loss for America. Like I said, 67 Americans tragically lost their life in this incident. It's an extremely sad day for the country because of that. I'm curious to see more information as it comes out on this, and I will, of course, keep you guys updated as more information comes out and as President Donald Trump keeps us updated on if that was the reason for the crash. I know Donald Trump gave that speech yesterday and this morning talking about it. I don't want to directly say that DEI had anything to do with this because I'm not sure. But when I do find out more information about the crash, I will definitely keep you guys updated with it. I do want to talk a little bit about our next topic as well. I want to go back into RFK a little bit. I want to talk about RFK Jr.'s hearing. I want to talk about how the media is consistently trying to skew things he says, make them sound terrible, and how I want to also talk about the media's obsession and our government's obsession with the medical industry and SSRI addiction specifically. Not that they're obsessed with the addiction part, but they're obsessed with promoting SSRIs. So I'm going to play this clip from the RFK hearing where they're talking about SSRIs. You could hear someone in our government talking about how it positively impacted their lives, and then RFK responding, how that's not everyone's take on it. That's not how everyone feels when they take those things, and your experience with it isn't everybody's. I think it's a great clip, and I think it goes to show a lot of the problems with SSRIs in our country. And after the video, I'm going to talk to you guys about SSRIs a little bit.
So you can't say that people
to impose any preconceived ideas that I may have. I just want to have good science.
So you're not saying that they aren't dangerous, which means that they could be dangerous. Let me ask you this.
That's not true.
You've described Americans who take mental health medications as addicts who need to be sent to wellness farms to recover. Is that what you believe?
No, of course I didn't say that anybody should be compelled to do anything.
No, but you said they should be sent.
I said they should be available to them. I didn't say they should be sent.
You said that folks that take antidepressants are like addicts. That I can provide that,
Oh, I think
Chair.
they should have the availability. Listen, I know people, including members of my family, who've had a much worse time getting off of SSRIs than people have getting off of heroin. It's the withdrawal period is, I mean, and it's written on the label.
I have some
This is
experience
very well
with this
documented.
myself, Mr. Kennedy. This is personal for me. When I was a young woman and I was struggling with depression, thankfully, I had the resources to help me get through it, including a new generation of SSRI uptake inhibitors, which helped to clear my mind, get me back on track to being a mom and a wife and a productive, happy person. And I'm really grateful for that therapy. So I have some experience with this, and I think that everyone should have access to that care. And your job as secretary is to expand access to care, not to spread lies and misinformation. And you know, the things that you say, Mr. Kennedy, they live on. They have impact. And, you know, we're having this conversation at the same moment that my Republican colleagues are looking to try to figure out how to save money any way they can. And so they want to cut Medicaid. Let's just think about this for a minute, because you're going to be, should you be confirmed, you would be responsible for CMS, which provides mental and behavioral health care to millions of Americans. Close to 40% of folks on Medicaid have a behavioral health condition. And you would be part of this administration that would be looking to cut Medicaid. So, Mr. Kennedy, these statements that you've made linking antidepressants to school shootings, they reinforce the stigma that people who experience mental health every day face every single day. And I'm very concerned that this is another example of your record of sharing false and misleading information that actually really hurts people.
Senator, you're
Thank you,
mischaracterizing my statements.
I am only putting into the record what you have said, Mr. Kennedy.
You're mischaracterizing my statements, and I'm happy that you had a good experience on SSRIs. Many Americans have very good experience on it. Others have not.
That would be an issue between them and their physicians, and not for the
exactly.
future head of HHS to be putting out misinformation
Exactly.
about the dangers of SSRIs and other antidepressant medication, spreading the stigma and the fear that we're actually trying to overcome.
Do you think physicians, when they make that prescription, ought to have access to good science?
Of course they do. And
That's all I believe, too. And you and I are in agreement, Senator.
And to your point that you made when you made these statements, it was not based on good science. I don't know what it was based on.
I was saying the science needed to be done. I was saying these are potential culprits. We're coterminous, and I named other things. I said video games. I said social media. I said SSRIs. SSRIs have a black box warning of suicidal, homicidal behavior.
Mr. Chair, I will submit to the chair the information that I have about what Mr. Kennedy has said, linking antidepressants to school shootings. Thank you.
This is a topic that is actually personal to me. I know tons of people who have struggled with addiction issues, specifically surrounding SSRIs. I think RFK Jr. hit the nail right on the head here, that while they can be helpful for some people, they're vastly overprescribed. Our medical industry is extremely corrupted. It's financially incentivized to make maximum amounts of profits because of their board of directors and things like that. And they push drugs that they know are bad on people, and it's terrible. The movie Dallas Buyers Club is actually great about this, and it rips Anthony Fauci apart. Dallas Buyers Club is played by Matthew McConaughey. It's about a cowboy out in Texas, a rodeo cowboy out in Texas, who develops the HIV virus, and they're prescribing him AZT, which is killing him. So he goes to other countries to get different drugs that are legal in those countries but not legal in the United States, because in the United States at the time, they were only trying to push AZT. What AZT was doing was, like I said, it was killing him. So he started a Dallas Buyers Club, which I'm not going to spoil the movie for you guys. You guys should go watch it. But it was a way for people to access those medications in a more legal way. I'm going to list for you guys about 30 different drugs, or I'm going to list about 15 different drugs, and I'm going to tell you why 15 of the most popular prescribed drugs currently in the country, and I'm going to tell you why they're bad and what they're closely related to. So oxycodone, very popular pain pill they give in the United States. It is almost identically chemically similar to heroin. It's basically slow release heroin. It's one of the most addictive pills. Oxycodone, Oxycontin, Percocet, they're all in the same family. But some of the most addictive pills, almost chemically identical to heroin. Like I said, it's basically slow release heroin. So that's a very common one the doctors love to prescribe. Hydrocodone, Vicodin, those are, again, basically slow release heroin. Fentanyl, it's a drug that they do prescribe. It's something that we're also trying to take off our streets, but it's about 100 times stronger than morphine, has major causes of overdose, and it's often mixed with heroin. Morphine is another big one. Morphine, it's a natural opioid from opium poppy. It's used for severe pain, and it's one of the precursors to make heroin as well. Codeine, it is a weaker opioid found in cough syrups, but it metabolizes into morphine in your body. So again, another heroin precursor. Methadone, it's used for opioid addiction and treatment, but it's highly addictive and, again, chemically similar to heroin as well. And then when you go into some of the benzoids and tranquilizers, like Xanax, Klonopin, Ativan, and Valium, they're all terrible. Again, they can have positive impacts on people's lives, but for the most part, these drugs are overprescribed, overused, and harmful to American people and growing minds in young children. They constantly will misdiagnose children and prescribe them these pills, and not only will it impact their brain's growth, but it will impact their whole childhood and whole life. So I really do think our medical industry not only needs to be held accountable, but it needs a big shape up in the drugs we're prescribing and pushing, and more credible studies done, not done by the companies who produce the drugs. We need more third-party tested studies on Valium, on Ativan, on Klonopin, on methadone, codeine, morphine, Xanax, all these things. And then beyond that, Adderall, one of the most abused drugs in this country, used for ADHD. It's chemically similar to meth. It's basically a lower dose meth. It is terrible what they're doing to the children in this country. It's terrible what they're promoting to the people of this country. The vast majority of commercials you see, whether you're watching just regular TV, sports games, whatever it is, they're medical commercials. And you watch the commercial, you see a guy smiling, riding a bike with his wife or whatever it is, and then at the end, side effects may include killing yourself, cancer, 6 kinds of AIDS. Like, it's awful the things they try and throw at people. It's awful the things they try and prescribe to people. You're going to take a cough medicine to cure a little bit of a sore throat, but the side effects are potentially killing yourself. Like, what? How are they getting away with this? It is corrupt. It needs to stop. I really think that RFK is what this country needed from a health perspective. He is in his 70s and he is so physically fit. And that's another subject I want to touch on as well. I want to show you guys the comparison of our last 2 health officials appointed by the presidents. I'm going to pop up a picture for you guys here really quick. That's a huge difference. To see one person in charge of health of the United States who's obese, and then and obese by definition, that's not even me trying to insult, that's me saying that there's an obesity problem in this country that needs to be addressed, and obviously she did not do that. But what RFK is doing is he's saying he wants to ban all these terrible dyes, all the things that our body can't break down, these forever chemicals in food. He wants to take away seed oils, which is contributing to obesity and the heart epidemic in this country. So it's such a stark contrast from the previous administration to this on almost everything, from immigration to, the cabinet picks like RFK, and just, look at that. Look at, in the previous administration, the Department of Health had an unhealthy leader, a leader who by a doctor would be considered obese. And then now we have a 70-year-old man who can bench press more than I can. I'm very glad of who we have in under Donald Trump's cabinet picks. I'm very glad that RFK is taking the seat and position he's taking. I think not only will he be an extremely effective leader for health in this country, but he will change how we think of how we eat and how we act on a daily basis completely. I think in 4 years, the changes in our lives from a health perspective will be changes that last forever, because I think any president who were to take them away would be hurting this country, and they would know that. I think the science will show itself and will be the proof that RFK needs that he's right. I'm very excited for RFK to be in the White House. I'm very excited for, like I said, I'm very excited for this country to be healthy again. This country has lost a lot of what made it great. It's lost a lot of healthy people. We have a heart epidemic in this country. Heart disease is killing hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Americans, and he wants to end that. So I'm very, very glad that that is happening. And like I said, I think RFK is a great pick for this country. I hate the way the media misrepresents him, and I'm very excited for the public to give his trust to him. I want to talk about a couple of our last topics here. I want to show you guys this clip. Another delusional clip on CNN where I'm going to let you guys watch it and then we'll pick it apart.
That if you are trying to actively hire illegal immigrants, if you think that's best, if you are trying to game the system, if you are trying to help someone break U.S. federal immigration law, I think if we're going to have a true crackdown on illegal immigration in this country, it has to involve everybody who's participating in it. And I think you've raised a good point with this topic. And so employers and anyone else who's part of this pipeline, I think they ought to be put on notice. And you got to play by the rule. Everybody has to play by the rules.
I don't want to hear that they're doing work that no one else will do. Talk to guys in the building trades, plumbers, contractors,
picking strawberries.
These building trades guys are being hurt.
I can't
by
wait.
labor that shouldn't be here.
I can't wait until American women can't get blueberries for their smoothies. I cannot wait until there is a full crackdown on all small businesses, as if that's going to be the solution to the immigration problem. It is just going to put immigration-related issues further into the darker corners. We're not going to see them. It's just going to become even harder to solve the problem. It doesn't make sense to punish individuals and people when there is a broken system.
I mean, look, I think if you came here illegally and you know when you came, you did it, you broke the law, you have to understand it's a new day in America. And number two, I still think the case for total economic collapse, if we have some deportation, is totally overstated. I mean, it's obvious the priority is violent criminals and the second priority is people with existing deportation orders. I think that's the vast majority of what's going to go on, for the next couple of years. And I don't think that's going to have any impact on the economy at all.
Scott Jennings is starting to be one of my favorite people at CNN. Not only is he continuously questioning the logic of liberals, but he is putting forth just reasonable answers about what this country will look like as years to come. So he talks about how liberals are crying that this is going to tank the economy, deporting illegals, and he quickly just backhands that and lets them know that no, that's not going to happen. That's unrealistic. That the vast majority of illegal immigrants in this country, especially the ones with deportation orders, they're not doing meaningful work in the United States, and the work they are doing is taking jobs away from Americans who don't have jobs. So I'm very glad that we are deporting them. I'm glad that CNN has someone like Scott Jennings to call out their delusional nonsense when they do have it. And I want to talk about one thing that lady said in there. Yeah, it would be a real Greek tragedy if women couldn't get their blueberries for their smoothies. What? What kind of stupid comment is that? What are you talking about? Are you saying that illegal immigrants are only good at picking blueberries? Okay. What are you trying to gain? What's your delusion? What? The blueberry industry is barely going to be affected by this. If you think that women are not going to be able to get their blueberry smoothies because Donald Trump is deporting illegal criminals out of this country, then what are you doing? Your delusion is just running wild. You can't believe yourself when you say something like that. This woman has to either be reading a crappy script someone wrote for her, or she has to, I don't know, maybe a coconut hit her in the head. But that is a delusional statement. That is a statement that the majority of Americans are laughing at currently. But saying, oh, I can't wait for the day that women can't get blueberries for their morning smoothie. Like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, that's what's important. I forgot. Laken Riley getting murdered by an illegal immigrant. No, CNN doesn't want to talk about it. But blueberries, oh my lord, we're not going to have our blueberry smoothies. It's the delusion that we're dealing with from CNN and the media in our country. This is the delusion that the American people are begging to stop, and Donald Trump is stopping. I'm very glad that Donald Trump is doing what he's doing, deporting these illegals. If it does lead to a lack of blueberries and people not being able to get their smoothies, I'll make sure to apologize, but I can't foresee that happening. I think that's one of the most delusional comments I have ever heard on CNN, and that is saying something. CNN has a tendency to say some very, very, very delusional things. So that's all the topics I have for you guys today. I'm going to sign off for the day. I'm James Pascalides. This is episode 17 of America Unfiltered. I hope you all have a blessed day today.